Not everything that glitters is gold. The fast vehicles, exhaust fumes, and surge of excitement that make every race memorable have a terrible side to them. The drivers undergo so much stress just to put on a show only to be treated harshly. There's a lot happening in F1 that we know nothing about. Curious? Let's dig in. F1 drivers train for a season months in advance, polishing their talents in minor divisions for years to become the greatest. The mental strain before and during the race is demanding, and a few drivers have been known to seek assistance. Traveling from one nation to another has been linked to team burnout and exhaustion. Accidents on the track are regular and sometimes fatal, not to mention the bodily effects that drivers experience while driving. Despite these difficulties and obstacles, many of these drivers would not trade the chance for anything. And why would they? Have you seen how much they're paid? A man has to eat, you know. The sport pays its drivers well and offers lucrative wages and brand sponsorships to cover its dark parts. Many corporations want to promote through F1 because of the high number of viewers drawn to these races. These businesses' logos or names are frequently printed on the vehicles. Companies continue to advertise despite the automobiles sometimes moving too rapidly for the logos to be visible. Alcoholic drinks, online casinos or betting firms, couriers, musicians, and even well-known brands such as Coca-Cola are frequently featured in this advertising. F1 sponsors give anything from $500,000 to over $1 million every year. The team's pedigree determines the sponsorship rate. A more successful club, for example, might earn millions of dollars in sponsorships each year. F1 advertising is shown to be useful to businesses in various ways. They get to be associated with well-known businesses while reaching millions worldwide. But aside from the money and jewels associated with F1, more criminal activities have been linked to racing sponsorships outside of F1. Examples include Ponzi schemes, gambling, embezzlement, drug smuggling, and racketeering. Drivers such as schemer Daniel Ackerman and Scott Tucker have been implicated in several embezzlement scams aimed at defrauding their fans, creditors, and other sponsors. Money laundering and tax evasion have been concealed via sponsorships. Money laundering is the process through which criminals and unlawful entities turn illegally obtained funds into legal currency. There are other F1 teams such as Haas that are sponsored by Russian corporations, one of which being the well-known Uralkali. And not just Haas, but also Ferrari, which is sponsored by Kaspersky. At a time when persons and businesses of Russian heritage are progressively being prohibited, all conceivable ties to the nation are being scrutinized in Formula One. But it's increasingly difficult to determine what deals are going on behind all that cash. And if that's not enough, there's also Vic Lee, who was arrested and sentenced to 12 years in prison after he was found smuggling about $10 million in cocaine using his team's transporter. Vic Lee Racing VLR, originally Vic Lee Motorsport VLM, was a British auto racing team best known for competing in the British touring car championship with BMWs and Peugeots. And despite all the money, fancy vehicles, and fantastic spectacles, the drivers who were the major source of entertainment continue to suffer. Lewis Hamilton is widely regarded as the finest F1 driver in history. He has won 7 world championships in over 100 races and has completely dominated the sport in the last decade. While racing at the peak of motorsport, he has experienced some of the greatest highs and heartbreaks. The Mercedes driver had grief on the track as recently as the season finale in Abu Dhabi. Last season, Hamilton was denied the opportunity to capture his 9th world title. Hamilton claimed in an interview with Graham Bensinger he was severe when coping with defeat in his early career. These are some tough tactics used by then McLaren driver to combat defeat. However, he acknowledged that he has improved in coping with experience and utilizes it as a motivation. But Hamilton's incident is only one of many harsh treatments F1 drivers face. The nasty behavior of racegoers whom they're attempting to entertain is considerably worse. First, let us quantify some. It is certainly a small percentage, but they say it takes one bad apple to taint the barrel. There are enough instances of inappropriate behavior at the Austrian Grand Prix to prompt Formula One to issue a statement declaring that abusive behavior is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. It would be discussed with the event promoter and security chiefs. And in terms of how severe an issue this is, it has surpassed porpoising as the sport's most talked about topic. A single instance at a single race is still too many, whether it's a driver being applauded when they crash, racist or homophobic comments, or as troubling allegations from Austria showed, sexual harassment or even assault. Why should a Formula One fan pay a week's earnings, if not more, to attend a Grand Prix, only to be subjected to derogatory insults or worse because of their gender, country, race, or even the driver they support? That takes us to how to win the battle against individuals who unintentionally or purposefully destroy the mood. Instead of turning a blind eye, Formula One has taken the first step by recognizing a problem. However, concrete action is required rather than just a statement affirming knowledge. One action must be done to insist on increased security and a zero-tolerance policy for offenders. Lines of acceptability are put up, and the person is immediately ejected from the circuit if they are crossed. It is not difficult to know where the line should be drawn. Any act of violence or racism should not be tolerated in such a loving sport that is followed, loved, and supported by people worldwide. The sport should provide both enjoyment and safety to the fans and drivers. The gloomy times in F1 are caused by a combination of factors that are detrimental to the sport. But it isn't the only problem that Formula One is facing now. There has also been much discussion regarding whether the Netflix original series Drive to Survive is the best or worst thing to happen to Formula One. Okay, so some individuals say that they love watching Drive to Survive, and like many fans, we were apprehensive when Netflix announced that they would be making a 10-part documentary with unparalleled and unique access in the paddock that would effectively show us a side of F1 that we had never seen before. It debuted on television in 2019 and was positively appreciated by longtime fans and those new to the sport. It wasn't daunting to new viewers with a little understanding of motorsport, but also not condescending to those who had been watching F1 for 30 years. It struck the perfect balance, which we suppose is difficult to do. Over each season, we follow a collection of drivers and their year in the championship. Naturally, those with big personalities like Daniel Ricciardo were selected to front the show, with well-known names like Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel generally absent in the first few seasons. It's fascinating to observe what these drivers do away from the racetrack, spending time with their families or negotiating a new contract. Being a part of Drive to Survive only strengthened Ricciardo's reputation. He was a fun fool off track, but when it counted, he could become a serious and tough competitor. Viewers grew to like him, and he was frequently referred to as the star of the program in earlier seasons. However, because Drive to Survive is so focused on personalities, Netflix explored relationships and rivalries that seemed out of place for us F1 fans who had just watched the season unfold. In the second season, in the dogfight episode, Ricciardo and Carlos Sainz are feuding. Ricciardo went to Renault, Carlos's previous team, but Carlos went on to bigger and better things with McLaren. Most fans thought there was no bad blood between the two racing drivers, but Netflix was able to manipulate the plot and create a heated tension between the two on television. The same can be said about the rest of the program, but no one understands why. F1 is more than just racing cars on a circuit. There is a lot of stress and strain, stories that should be conveyed to viewers, and secrets being held behind closed doors. Being a program built on personalities and with a field of drivers that believe they're the greatest among their peers and everyone wants to win is certain to make for some fiery entertainment. Regardless of the facts, most individuals who watch Drive to Survive like it. Whether you're new to F1 or a long-term loyal fan, the presentation portrays the tension, drama, arrogance, and action that the F1 circus gives weekly. It's more than simply fast cars driving in circles. It's the highs, lows, sacrifices, and the ability to push oneself to the maximum. Do you think the Drive to Survive would eventually contribute to the hate already present in F1? Comment below.